In a surprising advance, Ukrainian troops have managed to infiltrate the Kursk region and establish a bridgehead there. Actually, no one had assumed that an advance so far into Russian territory would be possible. According to initial reports, however, the Ukrainian fighters had little resistance and were able to gain territory deep into the region. Initial reports even speak of several hundred square kilometers that should have been conquered, although the number is likely to be slightly exaggerated. The Kursk region is slightly above the areas in Ukraine attacked by Russia. Recently, Ukrainian troops had come under further pressure from Russian advances. Whether the conquest of the area will bring relief at this part of the front area is questionable. In Russia itself, however, calls were heard for an end to the war. Apparently, the war has now come to Russia, unexpectedly for the people there. According to further reports, the Ukrainians have blown up various bridges and continue to entrench themselves, which should at least make counterattacks more difficult. Thus, one can certainly speak of a bridgehead that was conquered. Russia itself said that the conquered territories would be liberated again. However, it is not possible to say whether and how quickly this will happen. In any case, the advance is a remarkable step that could also prove to be a good pawn in upcoming negotiations. It is a trend that emerged at the end of the last century, the so-called cryostasis. The freezing of a person for a long period of time, usually with the aim of waking up later if there is a cure for one's own illness. As early as the 90s, there were a number of prominent people who had themselves frozen after their deaths, including billionaire Ralph Offenhaus. He even had himself launched into space on board an old space capsule, hardly imaginable today. The technology has improved in recent years, but there are still a few uncertainties to overcome. For example, liquid nitrogen, which was mostly used for freezing, has different effects on tissues. They have switched to freezing only the heads of the deceased in recent years for this reason, which seems even more macabre to outsiders. Such a freezing process was also very time-consuming, as teams had to be available around the clock to intervene immediately in the event of death with as little time delay as possible and bring the person to the cryochamber. The time of death had to be as close as possible to the time of freezing in order to prevent further deterioration of the body. This was very costly and worked out in 1994, the year in which Offenhaus had been launched into space with a few others, only because of his resources and money. Imitators were practically impossible. And indeed, research into cryostasis technology has made little progress since then. Now, however, there is a little hope, as scientists have revealed that they are on the verge of a crucial breakthrough, a freezing of living tissue that really stops aging. For example, people who are already alive could be frozen while they wait for a cure. Not much can be revealed today, but, in 10 years we should be ready, they say at the Cryonics Institute. Also in August, there was a prisoner exchange between the US and Russia. This was historic, as there had been more people than ever before, a total of 24. The prisoner exchange had been negotiated in the last few months in great secrecy. As has since become known, Kremlin critic Alexei Navalny, who died in February, should also have been part of it. Overall, the exchange is certainly a success for the Biden administration, as people who have been arrested in Russia for some time, such as Paul Whelan, have also been released. On the other hand, there was also a lot of criticism. Because one of those persons released is the famous Sioux murderer Vadim Krasikov. He had actually been sentenced to life imprisonment in Germany. Some of the released Kremlin critics also criticized the action as a covert deportation. The exchange itself took place at an airport in Turkey without any major problems.